Hello and welcome to class number 14 of the UPSC Mains Answer Writing Initiative, an attempt that is aimed at making you master the art of UPSC answer writing. In these classes, we decode one of the previous year questions that the UPSC has asked, see how to structure the answers so that you can have a clear idea in your mind, and also give your homework at the end so that you can also try and write an answer on your own. Also, in the very first class of this series, we discussed about how to structure the answer. Again, I am repeating this. If you did not see that, I am giving the link of the entire playlist in the description. Go to that, go to the very first class of this mains answer writing initiative. Watch the initial part. We have discussed about how to structure an answer, how to write the introduction, the main body, the concluding argument, so on and so forth. Please do see that. Now, let's take up a question from 2023. We are taking up a question from GS2 from International Relations. The question is, virus of conflict is affecting the functioning of the SCO, that is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In the light of the above statement, point out the role of India in mitigating the problems. Those who want to write this answer, you can pause the video here, think about it for 30 seconds or so, and then try to write this answer, and then you can check from this particular answer that we discussed whether you are writing on the same lines or not. Now, coming back. So it's a question from international relations. One of the bodies where India plays a major role, that is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. If you look at the question carefully, there are two things that they are talking about. First, the virus of conflict, meaning that within the SCO there are many conflicts. As you know, SCO mainly has Central Asian countries. Then there is China, there is Russia, India, Pakistan, even Iran is now becoming a part of it. So SCO in itself is one of those organizations that has internal issues. Conflict, for example, major conflict obviously India, Pakistan, India, China has its own conflict. So there are internal conflicts within the organization. There is also not an open but a kind of a backdoor conflict between Russia and China, who will take a bigger role here. Because this organization, when it first started, was an initiative by China, that is why it's called Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But Russia also considers itself as being very close to Central Asian countries, and they also see themselves as the primary operating country here. So there are internal conflicts here. That is the first part that you have to answer. Give examples of the internal conflict. Then the role that India plays. Now, what role can India play? These are some of those pointers which can be included in many other answers. For example, whenever there is a question about what role can India play in bringing peace to this organization, or what role can India play in this organization, etc., you would write similar points. For example, India can encourage negotiations. India can help in, let's assume, cultural negotiations or cultural exchanges. We can also try and help, let's say, encourage people to talk about freedom of movement of people, freedom of trade, etc. These are the things that India can do. So these are the two things that you would have to write. First, give examples of the conflicts, and second, the role that India specifically can play. The introduction part here will be simple. Introduction part should be about SCO. Give a fact about SCO. The question has not even given the full form. So the introduction can be just one or two lines about the introduction of SCO. It can be something like this. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, established in 2001, has expanded to include countries with populations equal to roughly half of the global population. However, there are still internal conflicts which may stand in the way of this cooperation going ahead. So again, similar pattern as we are following. We give an introduction of one line and then we give a connecting line. I have told this earlier as well. If possible, between the introduction and the main body, try and give a connecting line. Connecting line will be a line that will tell the examiner, the invigilator, what to expect in the main body. So when the main body begins, before that, you can have this connecting line. So in the main body, we will be writing about the conflicts. So we write here the connecting line that there are internal conflicts right now within the group. Now, we'll give examples of these conflicts. I gave examples earlier as well. First, bilateral tensions. Now, one problem that may occur here, or one mistake that you might do, in conflicts you might write first point India China, second India Pakistan, then China Russia. Those are similar kind of internal conflicts. Rather than just writing repeatedly about one country versus other country and doing these permutation combinations, rather than that, try and give a bigger picture. So first point, bilateral tensions. It includes India Pakistan, India China also. Second conflict is of resource sharing. Lot of these Central Asian countries are very, very resource rich. China has land disputes over many of these Central Asian countries. Water sharing, border disputes have been a major concern amongst these countries. Terrorism also has been alive and kicking in this part of the world. And then the great power rivalry between China and Russia, who will take the bigger role here. So again, rather than just writing India-China conflict, China-Pakistan or India-Pakistan conflict, better to give these kind of generalized subheadings so that under those subheadings you can expand. It will become much, much, much better. That was the first part of the answer. Second part about what is India's role going to be. Whenever any question is about India's role, first common point will always be to promote dialogue and cooperation. And then you can give examples if you have any example of India organizing conferences or meetings or bringing the countries together. This will apply to almost all of similar questions whenever there are questions. For example, let's say there is a question about what role can India play in resolving the military dictatorship issue in Myanmar. There also, your suggestion, one of them has to be India should promote dialogue and cooperation between the two sides. So that can be a generic point in all these types of answers. India can leverage its diplomatic capabilities, encourage dialogue amongst the member states. For example, the Heart of Asia conference where India and Pakistan jointly participated. Second, India can also take up connectivity initiatives like the Ashgabat Agreement, the International North-South Transit Corridor. All of these are examples of what India can spearhead in order to bring much more synergies together in the SCO. Then, anti-terrorism initiatives. We discussed about how terrorism is a major concern in the SCO. So, India can lead the way for anti-terrorism initiatives. India has done that in the past, but countries such as China have usually objected to it at every single stage. India can also use its standing and soft power because India has a historical connection with almost all the countries in the SCO. With the Central Asian countries also, India has a historical connection. A lot of dynasties in India had come from Central Asian countries. In the 1950s and 60s, a lot of Indian movies were shot in Central Asia. So India, Central Asia does have a very long history of collaboration. So again, India can highlight its objective and commitment towards multilateralism and also bring the neighbors on the same table to discuss any pending issues under its leadership. These are some of the things which India can do. Again, I am not saying that this is the only point that you can write. If you want, you can have other points as well. As we discussed, cultural exchange example, India hosted the SCO Food Festival in 2019. These can help people of the different countries come together. So having better people-to-people contact will also go a long, long way. So again, these are important pointers to highlight what is India's role going to be and what we have done in the past. Again, if you have other points, feel free to do that. I have told this earlier also, UPSC question does not tell you how many points to write. It depends on that very day of the examination how many points are coming to your mind. If you have 10 points, write 10. If you have 2 points, write 2. Don't expand it too much. Then we'll conclude it by saying that yes, India can play a major role in bridging the gap in the SCO. Now, in IR related questions, especially when there is a talk about India and India's role with other countries, examples such as Panchsheel, non-aligned can be used as much as possible. These are some of the biggest initiatives of India's foreign policy in the last few decades. So feel free to use these examples. That India can use or can highlight the principle of punch seal and non-alignment as we have followed for many years to build trust amongst the member countries. That also can be a good way forward. This brings us to the end of this question. I hope now it is clear in your mind how to answer such questions going forward. Here is a homework for you again from IR part. Indian diaspora has scaled new heights in the West. Describe its economic and political benefits for India. It's a very interesting question. You can give examples of multiple Indians who are at high positions of Indian origin people, be it the head of the World Bank, the head of Google, Microsoft. You can give multiple examples here. And then you can describe political and economic benefits for India specifically. If you want me to check your answers, you can mail them to my email ID. I'll give you a response in a couple of days. Also, make sure that you are attentive and regular in this series. I know prelims is very near, but at least writing one answer a day would mean that you are still in practice, because as soon as the prelims is over, from the very next day you have to pick it up. So just spending 10-15 minutes of your time in writing one answer will not really harm your prelims preparation. Don't worry about that. Thank you so much for joining in. Join the Telegram channel to get the PDF of this lecture. Link is in the description of the video. Bye bye. Jai Hind.